Om Shri Sai Ram, Gita Vahini by Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba, Chapter 10, Qualifications of the Teacher, Guru and the Disciple, Shishya. Dhanajaya, only he is entitled to be called a Pandit who has seen clearly the distinction between karma and akarma, that is action, and action without the sense of doership. If he has only stuffed into his head the matter contained in books, he is not a Pandit. The Pandit must have the buddhi or the intellect which grants samyaga darshana or clear vision, proper knowledge. When that jnana sampada or treasure chest of wisdom is gained, all karma becomes powerless. The Jnana Agni, that is the fire of Jnana, has the power to consume and burn away karma. Some people say that even a Jnani, that is one who is beyond the dualities, the enlightened being, must perforce suffer the consequence of prarabdha karma. He cannot escape from it. This is a conclusion that other persons draw, not an experience of the Jnani himself. To those who watch him, he might appear to be reaping the fruit of past karma. But he, that is the Jnani, is absolutely unaffected. Whoever is not dependent on lokika vastu or the worldly objects or affairs, whoever does not pursue indriya sukham or sensory pleasures, whoever is not motivated by all kinds of kamas or desires as a result of subdued vasanas or impulses, tendencies, and also who is free from the vasanas, cannot be affected by the temptations of shabda or sound, sparsha, touch, rupa, form, rasa, taste, and gandha, smell. Such is the true sannyasin or renunciant, the true sarva parigraha vivarjita, one who has given up all the possessions, and the true jnani or the enlightened being. That is to say, he is supremely happy by himself without the need to be dependent on outside things or affairs. He finds karma or action in akarma. He may be engaged in karma, but he is not affected in the least by it. He has no phala apeksha or the expectation of the fruit of actions. You may ask how he is able to do that. Listen. He is ever content. The contented man is free. He does not depend upon others. He is unaffected by the feeling of kartavya or doership. He is content with whatever happens to him, ill or well, caused due to anicca prarabdha or parecha prarabdha, without any raga or attachment or dvesha, hatred. That is why he is called Yadra Chabalabha Santushta, one who is happy with whatever is obtained spontaneously or by means of destiny, for he is fully convinced that everything happens according to the Lord's will. So, his mind is ever calm, unshaken and pure. He is ever jubilant in the ocean of bliss. Being ever content, he is the sign of Jnani. Want of contentment is the sign of the Ajnani. Thus taught Lord Krishna to Arjuna. Those murkhas or fools who gave up the purusharthas or the goals of human life and walked the path of sloth, how can they be called Yadra Challabha Santushta? Contentment is the treasure that is won by the Jnani. It cannot be won by the Ajnani who piles one wish on another and builds one plan after another. Over and above this, he pines perpetually and worries himself and sets his heart ablaze with greed. Arjuna, the Jnani, is not dominated by the dualities of joy and grief, victory and defeat, gain and loss. He is Dvandvatita, one who is beyond duality. He scorns Matsarya or envy and never allows it to affect him. Now, what about the Swarupam or the innate nature and the Swabhavam, innate quality of the Atma? Atma is asanga, unattachment. Atma is uninfluenced by anything that is not Atma. It has neither birth nor death, hunger nor thirst, grief nor delusion. Hunger and thirst are the pains of the prana. Hunger and thirst are the pains of the prana. Grief and delusion are the pains of the mind. These 6 kinds of pains together are called sadurmis. The Atma remains uninfluenced by these pains. So, Arjuna, do not assign any status to these. Know your true self as the Atma. Give up all Bhranti or delusion and become asanga, unattached. There is nothing more pleasing than this. Arjuna, be like the lotus. Be like the lotus leaf in the marsh of samsara. Do not get smeared with the mind. Do not get smeared with the mud called samsara around you. Though you are in the samsara, do not let the samsara enter into you. That is the sign of asanga. In it, yet outside it, be like the lotus leaf without letting the surrounding water into it, and not like the porous blotting paper that gets saturated with whatever it comes in contact with. Do abhishekam, or the ceremonial bath of deity, to the Atma Lingam with the waters of your own chitta vrittis. When the chitta or the mind moves in one direction and the indriyas or the senses move towards another, such a person becomes a ubhaya bhrasta, one who gets deprived of both material and spiritual success. So, avoid this dosha or defect called asakti, attachment. When that is done, your chitta can remain steady and focus on jnana or higher knowledge, self-knowledge, ultimate truth. Then, whatever you do becomes a yajnam or sacrificial rite. Whatever you speak becomes a divya mantram, that is holy hymn or mystic formula. Wherever you plant your foot, the place is rendered holy. Arjuna, I shall tell you something about yajnam also. Listen calmly, controlling all chitta vrittis, or the thoughts, impulses or states of the mind. People perform various kinds of yajnas, such as dravya yajna, tapo yajna, yoga yajna, swadhaya yajna, jnana yajnam, etc. All pavitra punya, karvyams, or the holy and the noble deeds that are possible with the expenditure of dravya or riches are called dravya yajnam. Riches have 3 states which affect them: danam or charity, bhogam, experience, and nasham, loss. Riches can be saved from nasham either by danam or by bhogam. Now, if a pit is dug in one place, the earth that is excavated becomes a mold, becomes a mound by its side. There is no pit without a mound. When riches accumulate in one place, there must be a deficit or shortfall in another place. Danam must be done to balance such deficiencies. Danam must be done to balance such deficits. The proper utilization of one's riches is dravya yajnam, done in conformity with the shastras or scriptures. What is meant by proper utilization? Godanam, the gift of cows; Bhudanam, the gift of lands; Vidyanam, imparting education; Vaidyadanam, providing free medical care. Shramadanam, volunteering work or gift of labor. Anandanam, feeding the needy. Annadanam, feeding the needy, etc., are included under Dravya Yajanam. Again, when all physical, mental and speech faculties are utilized for dharma sadhana, then it becomes Tapo Yajanam. It is not tapas. If you have to lie down due to hunger arising from not being able to get a meal, controlling the chitta vrittis is yoga. Doing all karmas, but yet remaining unbound by karma, that is yoga. Yoga is the sadhana, spiritual practice by which the mind is fixed on the Lord. And Swadhyaya Yajanam, it means studying with love, zeal, implicit faith, humility, and reverence the sacred scriptures that lead you to moksham or liberation. This study is the means to repay the Rishi Rinam, debt due to the Rishis. It adds merit or punyam and destroys demerit or papam. The next one is Jnana Yajanam. This is not the aparoksha jnanam, but is the paroksha jnanam, which is the means of accomplishing the ultimate goal. Listen to the Shastras that are related to this jnana and shraddha. Unwavering faith, study them and ponder over the teachings in your mind with yukti or proper reasoning and prayukti, motivation to put to use. So, it is not accomplishment. This is called Jnana Yajanam. Jnana or Jnana Yajanam also means the eagerness to realize the Atma Tattvam or the principle of Atma through Atma Vichara or self-inquiry, and also in consultation with the experienced elders. You have the responsibility of carrying out all kartavya karmas laid down or prescribed. Arjuna, you may ask me about the means whereby this sacred jnana can be acquired and whether it is within the reach of all or not. Listen, those anxious to get this sacred jnana have to go to realized souls who are Tattvavetas, those who have grasped the basic reality, and win their grace. And studying well their moods and manners, they must await a good chance to ask for their help. When doubts arise, they should await a favorable chance and approach those enlightened preceptors calmly and courageously and get their doubts solved. Merely studying bundles of books or delivering hours-long discourses or wearing the ochre robe are not the signs of the genuine jnani. Jnana cannot be secured by these methods. Jnana can be won only from and through elders who are experienced. You have to serve them and win their love. How can doubts be ended by merely reading Shastras and books? It will only confuse the mind even more. Books can at best inform. They cannot demonstrate through direct experience. Only the Tattvetas can convince by direct demonstration. So, they have to be sought after and served reverentially for some time. Then only can this precious jnana be won. No amount of sea water can slake one's thirst. It will also spoil one's tongue. So too, no amount of shastric study can straightway solve one's doubts. Besides, the Guru has to pay attention to the state of the aspirant for jnana, in addition to bhakti and shraddha. Only then, in addition to bhakti and shraddha, that is reverence and unwavering faith in preceptor and source of knowledge, the aspirant of jnana must also have saral swabhava or sincerity or integrity. Only then he will be able to attain jnana. He should not grow impatient and irritate the teacher. Haste can only ruin chances of success. No matter how long it takes, he should serve the Guru with patience until he attains jnana. Whatever the Guru tells should be practiced and experienced in daily life. Out of greed to become a jnani quickly, you should not sample out every single item of advice that you hear or learn and keep changing the sadhana as fancy takes hold of you. Doing thus, you will only end as a complete ajnani. Why? It is sometimes preferable to remain an ajnani or ignorant, but what happens to such people is they tend to escape both fates and end up as fools. Therefore, one has to be careful in this matter. As soon as you have neared the Guru, you must endeavor to please him even by putting your thirst of knowledge aside and win his favor by obeying his orders and serving him carefully. You should have no other thought than serving your Guru. Give up all else and win his grace. This is the quickest way to attain jnana. Instead, if you are disobedient and critical through mamakaram and abhimanam, ahamkaram, egoism, alakesham or disregard, and avishyam or want of faith, and try to test your Guru, you cannot be blessed by the vision of the truth. Instead of grace, you will be plunged in gloom. When the mother cow notices its calf, she lactates and brings the calf near to feed it. So too, aim to become dear to Guru like a calf, so that the Guru will draw the Shishya to his presence and give him milk of his grace. The Shishya ought to be a Shuvinita, one with extraordinary humility and proper behavior. Then, just as a polished piece of iron will be attracted by the magnet, the Shishya will receive the Anugraham or grace of the teacher. Arjuna, not only the qualifications of the Shishya are needed to be looked into by the Guru, but the qualification of the Guru too can be inquired into by the Shishya. In fact, he ought to, for he needs a Bodha Guru, a teacher who teaches the highest truth and shows the way to God. Not anyone of the various types such as Badha Guru, teachers who cause pain to the students by taking them along the wrong path, who are available in tens of millions in the world. Listen, Arjuna, I shall describe the characteristics which a Guru should possess. He must have no merely scriptural knowledge, but also the Anubhav Jnana or wisdom derived from direct experience. He must be a Tattveta, Tattvaveta, one who has grasped the basic reality, established in the reality that is in Brahmanishtha, that is absorbed in steady contemplation of Brahman. Mere Shastra Jnanam or the knowledge of scriptures is incompetent to grant mukti, self-realization. It can at best help in gaining bhukti, a living. Why? There are some who by sheer tattva anubhavam, direct experience of the truth or reality, have won mukti without a grain of Shastra Jnanam. But such persons cannot guide the disciples who take refuge with them. They cannot understand their difficulties and help them to attain fulfillment. So only those who have both Shastra Jnanam and Anubhava Jnanam are entitled to give Jnana Upadesham. There are lakhs and lakhs of persons who are gurus for the name's sake. All those in Gerayu or Okre are gurus. Even those who smoke ganja or drug like marijuana are gurus. All those who indulge in discourses are gurus. All who write books are gurus. It is apakirti, disrepute, to the very word Guru by merely wandering over the country and learning to argue. No one can deserve the title Guru. He should be mighty and supreme, and through his direct experience, he must uplift the disciple and put him on the track of sadhana prescribed by Shastras. Of what use is sheer argumentative skill? Whatever is said and done by him must have the sanction of the Shastras. Mere vomiting of things imbibed from books in long speeches, which move the listeners in one wave of excitement to another, does not make a guru. Such may be heroes in lecturing, but they are zeros in sadhana and in the mastery of the spiritual field which is needed for the position of guru. They can become good schoolmasters, but they cannot confer bhakti or point out the way of mukti or liberation or instruct into sacred knowledge. They have as much value as the books which contain all the matter that they pour forth, and the shishyas who resort to such guru too are valued the same. Many unwary sadhakas are attracted by the magic of words and the verbal gymnastics of such showy gurus and are becoming ubhaya bhrastas, those who get deprived of both material and spiritual success. They may be scholars, they may be called pandits, but they may give lectures, but just because of this, they do not become entitled to grant the boon of jnana. That can be done only by avatarins, the Lord that comes in human form. Devamasa Sambhutas, or the divine beings, spark of divinity, born as men, and Anubhava Tattvavetas, those who have grasped and experienced the basic reality. It is no use claiming a fraction of this or that experience. The experience must be the full and itself full, the complete accomplishment. Only then do they become entitled to grant the boon of jnana. Those who know only a fraction will take you up to a certain point and leave you there in the middle region like Trishanku, who was hung between the heaven and the earth. So, the aspirant should approach only those who have completely accomplished. The Guru must study only the virtues and qualities of the aspirant who seeks his guidance. He must not be moved or prejudiced by his wealth, status, or position. He must be able to judge the aspirant's heart and his real nature. Such gurus are certainly the best. The Guru must act as the alarm clock to the disciples who are caught in the deep sleep of ajnana. If the Guru is a lobhi who is not open-minded to impart his knowledge to the disciple, and the disciple is a somari who is not open-minded and keen to learn from Guru, woe be to both. Thus Lord Krishna taught Arjuna very clearly the yogyata, or the qualifications of both the Guru and the Shishya, their charanas, or the behavior or conduct, Shastra Anubhav, Guna Lakshanas, and Vishvasa Pravartana, that is virtues and characteristics, and faith and activities. This nectarous advice was bestowed not only to Arjuna but to the whole world. All who seek to become either gurus or shishyas must pay attention to those ambrosia-like words. Now let us look into the qualification of the gurus and shishyas of today, which are in keeping with the very low standards. Following the course of the age, in ancient times, a guru with above mentioned qualifications could be found only with great difficulty. Thousands of eager seekers searched in the forests for them, for they were so rare and so precious. Those days, shishyas were more and gurus were fewer. Now gurus are available at every street corner by the dozens, but true Shishya are declining in number. The main reason for this predicament is gurus do not conduct in proper manner, and the other reason is Shishyas do not obey the instructions of the guru. Both are deteriorating fast and becoming as the other, suited to the other's level. The gurus have been reduced to the necessity of feeding and fostering Shishyas. Not that it is wrong when the Shishyas are worthy, but the gurus are afraid of the Shishyas deserting them, and so they have to cater to their tastes and fancies. The Shishyas claim to be Guru Putras or the sons of the Gurus, to be Ashrama Vasis or the residents of the hermitage, Sadhakas or the spiritual aspirants, etc. But their lives are untouched by the ashram atmosphere, sadhana or sadhu qualities. They have not even elementary gratitude to the Guru. They mouth slogans like Krishna Arpanam, but their acts reveal only Dehar Arpanam, dedication to the body, not to the God. Besides, some novel ways begin to emerge now. Shishyas lay down the rules and not the Guru. Their desire for recreation, easy living, and comfort has to be honored by the Guru. This is their first rule. And what is the second rule? The Guru must teach them without inflicting any physical trouble and exertion, without insisting on any sadhana, without acquiring expenditure of even a naya paisa. Moksha must fall like a fruit right into their lap. The Guru should not recommend any rigorous discipline or rule of life. The Guru must conduct as per the wishes of the Shishya. If the Guru goes against him, the Shishya immediately disassociates from him. Jai Sai Ram.
Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Oh